for joining us. Continuing on with the foundational principles, we come to nutrition, which is now at number 4. Could you explain what are the main things that we want to look for in this concept?
Definitely. Well, to make it really simple, I would say quantity and quality of the food that you're eating. Nutrition is mainly found for us through the different foods that we can source, and if we have a look at the quality aspect of those foods, today we have quite a challenge out there. It's almost like a minefield of what you can get access to with regards to food. Typically supermarkets are the main hunting grounds for people these days, and the variety of food in those supermarkets is quite extensive. Yet the quality that I have found in supermarkets is, in my opinion, quite below par. So when we talk about quality, what am I talking about? I'm talking about how much nutrition is in the food itself. So when we have a look at the pinnacle of what quality nutrition in food is, we have a look at the organic standard. And it's getting close to being beyond debate now as to whether organics is better than conventionally raised produce. And it has been shown in study after study that there is more dense nutritional value to organic food. So one of the first ports of call for people with quality is to buy the best quality you can afford. It is an investment in your health, no doubt about it. So organics being one of the pinnacles of that quality there. The second aspect of quality I would encourage people to look at would be the level of processing the food has gone through. Now everything from picking to cutting to cooking to grinding will be considered a form of processing of food. And the more processing a food goes through, the less nutrition it's going to yield to the person that's eating it. So when we have a look at foods, the best quality in terms of processing is to acquire foods that have been minimally processed or as close to the way nature presented it as we can. So an apple that's been chopped up or juiced is far less nutrient dense than an apple that is right off the tree that hasn't been tampered with at all. And we go right through the spectrum from fruits and vegetables to meats as well, and of course your fats and oils and such. So having very minimal processing and maximum amount of nutritional value in it through organics. Then we have a look at quantity, and it's an amazing thing that quantity is really the main focus with regards to nutrition today. And the common assumption is that we need to eat less. I am about to tell you that that's not true. For most people, we actually need to eat more, and what we need to eat more of are good quality foods, but in the proportions that are right for our body. I really feel that it's high time in the world of health that people start focusing on individualized nutrition. When I say individualized nutrition, what I mean is that each and every person has a different requirement from food than the next. This has been demonstrated over and over again in many, many studies that have been done. Initially, the works of Weston Price. If you haven't heard of Weston Price, it will be well worth your while to get on the website www.westonaprice.org and .org, I believe. And on that you'll find information about the man Weston Price, who travelled around the world in the 1920s and 30s investigating the foods that native peoples were eating. And he also found that these native peoples had vastly superior health than what we have today, and he attributed it to the foods they were eating. But more importantly, when I talk about quantity, he found that between groups of peoples that they had a very different proportion of macronutrients that they would eat. Macronutrients would be your proteins to fats to carbohydrates. So as a very broad example here, and it's something I could speak on quite lengthily, if we had a look at the Eskimos as an example, or the Inuit people of Northern America, you would find that their proportions of fats to proteins to carbohydrates was very interesting. They were eating about 90% of their food as fats, oils and meats, and only about 10% of their food as plant matter or carbohydrates. And they had robust health. They were able to live in a very cold and some would say harsh environment, and they had exceedingly good health in contrast to what you would expect with a diet like that. or what's at least commonly purported. When we have a look at another group, an equatorial group of people, the Quechua Indians, they subsisted off entirely the opposite ratio. They had 90% of their foods being plant or carbohydrate based, and the other 10% was fats and proteins. And they were very, very healthy. Now you've got a big difference between these two. So which one is right? Is it 90% fat and meat, or is it 90% carbohydrate? Well, the answer is you have to determine that for yourself. And every individual is going to be different. The two examples that I gave were the two extremes of the case. The Eskimos would most closely approximate the Atkins style of diet, and the Quechua Indians would most accurately represent the Pritikin style of diet. If we went right smack bang in the middle, we could have a look at Barry Sears' zone diet, and he was right in the middle of that spectrum for quantity. So when we have a talk about quantity of foods, consider that there is a spectrum, and you sit somewhere on that spectrum. And to determine this will greatly, greatly benefit you in your health. Yeah, I'll leave it at that with quantity.
So Terence, does digestion play a role in your body gaining its nutrition?
It does. It definitely does. In fact, it's a very, very important part of the work that I do with people, is to ensure that their digestive system is functioning optimally. You can have the best quality foods, minimally processed and exactly according to your body's specific needs in their proportions, and yet your body won't uptake those nutrients. If your digestive system is not functioning well, and bear in mind the digestive system is essentially a tube that goes from your mouth to your anus, and there's a lot of organs along that pathway that assist in the extraction of nutrients from the foods that you're consuming. Now what we want to do is make sure that that process is as efficient as possible. And there are many things to look at when we consider how can we boost the efficiency of the digestive system. First and foremost, you'd want to have a look at whether or not your body is intolerant or sensitive to any particular foods. It's a very, very common thing today for the clients that I see to have multiple food intolerances that they're often quite unaware of, and that inhibits their ability to be able to extract nutrition and to be able to maintain health of their body. Parasites are very common, fungi are very common in people's bodies. In fact, it's been said that up to 90 to 95% of people walking around today in our society have an infection of a parasite or multiple parasites or fungi. So we need to definitely address that and make sure that we can eliminate those competitors to you and your nutrition. Other things that are very important with regards to digestion is whether or not you've got a leaky gut. Now this can compromise your immune system tremendously. When I say a leaky gut, if I talk about the intestinal wall, there's a lot of fine pathways where nutrition can flow through the pipes of your digestive system into your bloodstream. And they're very tightly bound together, so it only lets small proteins and food particles through. But if you have a leaky gut, those openings tend to get larger, and it allows larger proteins that haven't been completely digested to go through. Now, considering that 70% of your immune system is around your intestinal system, so this is there to help with any of those proteins that are going through that gut wall, and they'll bind to it, creating antibodies. What will happen then is that that's going to extract a lot of energy from your immune system and hence from your body, and then overall your vitality will lower and you'll get less you'll have less ability to be able to extract nutrition from your food. So yeah, it's quite a minefield there as well with regards to how to get your gut flowing very well. And there's a number of procedures and tests that I use for people to ensure that we have identified exactly what the priority objective is to get their gut functioning properly.
So where should people start with addressing the nutrition?
Yeah, it's a really good question. If I was to say the most important thing would be improve your quality of the food you're eating first. That has an overflow effect into many other areas, and I'm a big proponent of organics and biodynamics and supporting local farmers. I think this is a very important step for our society to start to regain its health. Second from the quality and reducing processed foods and reducing fast foods and the like is to eat according to your metabolic type. Now, the metabolic type ties into that concept of individualized nutrition. Your metabolic type is your exact proportion needs of foods. And the work that I do is always surrounding with quantity, determining someone's metabolic type. Where on that spectrum between Pritikin and Atkins do you sit? And identifying it as finely as possible, as accurately as possible, will enable someone to be able to gain the full benefits from the food they're eating, have lasting energy, have increased vitality and robust health. And then if I was to bring all that into one concept, I would say the best thing that someone could do today, considering the nature of the food world that we're in, is to find someone to assist you. I think that everyone out there would benefit from having either a nutritionist or a health coach or a Czech practitioner similar to myself to be able to guide you through this minefield towards your health. Food is a very, very important aspect to anyone's health, and to make sure that you are getting the best out of your food, especially if you're paying top dollar for the best quality food, you want to make sure that you're getting the most out of that. And as a result of working with a practitioner, you will definitely find that your health will bloom as a result. So it'll be well worth your investment to do exactly that.
Just one last thing, something that I've come up recently is the raw food diet.
Right.
Is it something that is definitely worth following on?
That's a really good question, David. I would like to expound upon that a little bit. The concept of cooking food is a fairly recent addition to human history, and when we have a look at when fire was introduced into human culture, the research suggests that it was around 100,000 years ago that we mastered the art of using fire in our culture as human beings. And the point at which we started using fire to actually cook with was somewhat after that. In fact, it's been suggested it was around between 30 and 50,000 years ago only. Now, we're finding that you're only finding a very small change to our genetic structure over a time period like that. In fact, you could say that we're essentially the same today as we were 50,000 years ago. Yet, cooking our food the way that we do now is a massive change. Personally, I still do cooking with my food, but there is a lot of evidence to support reducing the amount that you cook your food and eating a lot more raw foods in your diet. In fact, this does, if you look into it, does touch on the topic of having some raw meats in your diet as well. So raw food definitely is another way to avoid processing food and therefore maintaining the nutritional content of that food. So I would say it's something well worthwhile looking into, and it's something that I do guide people toward as they're working with me. Yeah.
I'd like to thank you for that, Terence. The most informative.
Really hope it helps. Thank you.
Yeah.